If you remember, this is a reference to angels like the ones who had rebelled against God before the flood. This passage is saying that since the people didn't want to worship him, he gave them up to worship these fallen angels. These ancient nations referred to these angelic beings as the gods, and even carved idols to represent these false gods. But one of these idol worshippers was about to have an encounter with the one true God that would lead to a new promise and a series of pretty epic events. His name was Abraham, and he was a descendant of Noah's son Shem. The book of Joshua tells us Abraham came from a family of idol worshippers. First, God calls Abraham to leave his homeland and become a blessing to the nations. But then he lies to the king of Egypt and brings a curse on the land. But after that, he has faith in God's promise to give him a son and is blessed. But then he tries to force God's promise by sleeping with his servant Hagar. Next, Abraham asks God to not destroy the city his nephew is staying in, which seems like a kind thing to ask for, except that the people of this city are some of Canaan's descendants who were doing some pretty evil stuff. So God toasted them with fire. Next, Abraham and his wife have their promised son Isaac, who Abraham trusts God with when he's put to the test. But in the end, Abraham dies. These are just a few of the things that Abraham did, but do you see the two sides of his life? On one hand, Abraham has a ton of faith and is blessed. But on the other hand, he also lacks faith at times, which results in death. Are you starting to see the two choices this Genesis story is all about? Abraham's son Isaac has two sons, but instead of God blessing the older son Esau, which would have been the custom, God blesses the younger son Jacob. God is saying that from Jacob's descendants will come the Satan-crushing savior. But not only that, Jacob will also receive the promise given to his grandfather Abraham, that all the nations will be blessed through him. The same nations who had turned on God to worship false gods. God was promising Jacob that he was going to reverse the curse he had placed on the nations at Babel. This is the second big promise God made in the book of Genesis. So let's go through Jacob's life quickly. After God promises to bless Jacob, instead of trusting God for the blessing, he deceives his father Isaac into giving him the blessing. This makes Jacob's brother want to kill him, so Jacob flees to his uncle Laban's house. But before he arrives, he lies down and has a very strange dream.